tasks that I have been assigned by my colleagues, like organizing committee colleagues, is that I have to talk about my experience of being a YI, a young investigator in India. So it has been a decade, more than a decade now, that I have been in a job as an assistant professor in the University of Kashmir in the Department of Botany. And if you think that I have done a postdoc and then got this YI job, that's not true. I have got the job without having done any postdoc. But if you look at, if I wish sometimes I did a postdoc before I went into job. Why? Because doing a postdoc in itself is a good experience and not too bad because there is no grant writing to be done. You don't have to graduate again because your PhD is already there, and by and large there is not much teaching. What we generally do, we get experience finally to apply for jobs. And once we get the job as a YI, then a YI has its own set of challenges. For instance, first important challenge for a YI is because as a postdoc you generally work with a postdoc mentor and you carry on his ideas. But as a YI, one of the challenges that you have is that you have to identify your own paradigm as to what you are going to work on, what interests you really, what excites you, and what exactly you want to carry forward. And accordingly, you set up your lab and then you apply for the grants. That's how we work. And one of the important challenges that I personally believe is that in the heart of hearts everyone has to make as a young investigator is that whether you want to do science for really the passion of science, or you want to benefit some people whom you have seen suffering probably because of something and you want to address that problem through your innovative science, or sometimes this could be also a motivation that you want to get profit out of doing science. And in the Indian context especially, maybe elsewhere also, when you apply for the grants, there is a kind of paradoxical situation that you come across. That's why I put this cartoon from somewhere, that you are completely free to carry out whatever research you want, so long you come to these conclusions. These are the prescribed mandates, and you can't help if you unfortunately are in that institute where you have that kind of a mandate. You cannot pursue your independent interests. But I am sure that people have innovative ways of still pursuing their own interests while sticking to the mandate of the institute. Anyway, when I look at my experience as a YI, almost a decade long ago then, I split it into two, prior to 2007 and after. And I see in terms of the publications that I have been, the kind of works that I have been able to publish, the kind of impact, little that I have been able to make, there is a flip after 2007. And that's why I believe that doing a postdoc is important, because it takes a while for you as a YI, if you are not a postdoc, to settle. And after a postdoc, if you get it, probably you settle faster. And I did not do an extended postdoc, but I did some small doses of postdoctoral collaborative stuff. In 2008, I did it in the University of Laval in Canada, and again in the same university but in a different lab. And then in 2012, I did one of these small postdocs again in the US. What basically I laid out of those postdoctoral interactions is that somehow, the ideas that I pursue, I forgot to basically tell you that we are working on the biological invasions, invasive species that come to the Himalayan system from other non-native places, and they drive out native biodiversity with huge ecological and socio-economic impacts. So through these collaborative experiences, I could get on board some of the guys who are really doing good in invasion biology, and with them, of course, I asked my own questions and get their experiences and get their benefits of the collaboration to move forward. And I would like to basically share the lessons that I've learned as a YI over time. One of the lessons that to me is one can probably do extraordinary and ordinary circumstances. You need not necessarily to be in a highly sophisticated lab to do great science, although I don't claim that I'm doing a great science, but I'm satisfied with whatever little I'm doing. But you can, of course, do. The question is, or the criteria is, you have to ask great questions. So long you ask good question, only then you can say, get the better answers. I will give you a small experience. In 2004, I was doing an experiment on the soil feedback of invasive plants. How an invasive plant behaves with and without a given consortium of soil microbes from invaded place and uninvaded places. And while I was really excited to look at the results of the experiment, a paper came into the Nature by this guy, Ray Callaway from the Division of Biological Sciences in Montana, US. So, and the same thing almost was a kind of same question, but he had taken soils from native and non-native regions, and then grown the Centauria, which is a native highly invasive in North America, with those. And then it really was like, oh God, this is done. So somehow I got into correspondence with this guy to discuss this plant, which is native to their place. It is native to North America. It's known as a canadensis, commonly called as Canadian horsefly, but highly invasive in our Himalayan systems, not only here but in many European places and in China and many other places as well. So what we did was, we asked a simple question. These invasive plants are notorious for driving out native species in non-native places, not at their native place. And this is a species that is somewhat different. It does not look very much invasive in its, it looks like quite abundant in its native place as well. So we did ask whether it really drives out natives in both the places or only in the non-native place. And we set up kind of in the non-native and non-native range some field experiments, and this is what we got. So these red ones, these are the Kashmir sites, these are the Chinese sites, these are the. To our utter surprise, we found that it really drives out natives only in the non-native places, but not in the native place, which basically came into the new phytol just recently. And then we carried out this idea forward. We sampled all these individuals. Now, basically, I'm trying to say how collaborations one can develop and carry along. In the previous publication, one of the authors we do have a postdoc, and he's a population geneticist, and we thought, is this plant in terms of genetic diversity more diverse in non-native regions than the native regions? And we sampled all across the globe these samples, and she's my PhD student right now working in the German lab on the population genetics on the samples all across the globe. And this afternoon only, when we were here in the laboratory, I got a call from her that we have really found one of the populations being multiplied, rest of them are. This is a quite exciting result because these invasive species in their native range are usually diploids, but in their non-native range they can become polyploids that helps them to recover. So I will not bore you with much of the science that I'm doing, but I'm just trying to say how these collaborative stuff develops over time. And this is something that I was saying earlier. We also found recently, although this is the last week paper that came up, when we say that this plant also significantly reduces the soil microbial diversity in the non-native places but not in the nature piece. And this is with the Canadian postdoctoral mentor. And with that, with those mentors, so the lesson second that basically I have learned is that collaborations matter a great deal in your career as a young investigator. And this is my PhD student who recently passed out. He's in the sea of this, this Fairbanks Australis. He also worked on the population genetics. The point that I'm going to make here is that the postdoc mentor with whom I worked only for 1 year, I made these two guys to work in the same lab, taking that connection along. And I am really happy that that connection works really well for me. Although we are asking our own questions, but we are taking the help of their labs and their experience to carry this forward. So, in this, there's a subtle point in here. One of the criticisms of the postdocs that join back as YIs is that they do not really prove so productive in the Indian system as they are abroad. And there are a number of reasons. There was a paper published in Current Science, and I responded to that. It was in 2007. The crisis in Indian science is more than meets the eye. Why I say that one of the reasons is there are a number of reasons. Say lab funding, overall setup, so on and so forth. But one of the things is that back home, we are not really getting those experiences along our career to do something really good science. And this is again the collaboration that again there's stuff that comes out of our collaborations, wherein we demonstrate that a species with a broader native range always is likely to become more invasive than a species which is not having a broader native range, because it is beset with a set of traits that predispose it for invasiveness. One of the last slides that I want to talk about before I conclude is that we are a part of a consortium, global consortium called MIRROR, Mountain Innovation Research Network. And in that, all along the globe where there are the mountains, we are trying to look at the patterns of innovations, how invasive species as they behave in these mountainous regions. And this experiment right now is going on. This Jack is coordinating it, and we have sites all across. What we are doing is, we are growing these invasive species in the environments like, say, for example, Gulmarg and in Srinagar. These are two different environments. Very warm down there and quite cool here. So we are getting the communities down to Srinagar from Gulmarg, getting them, say, exposed to the experimental warming, you can say, and trying to see how these species behave under experimental warming conditions. And this Coryza canadensis that I was talking of is one of the species that we are working on, apart from one species which is common to all the mountainous global regions. And this experiment is going on, and the field station is just outside this hotel. I mean, on the other side we have a botanical garden, high altitude botanical garden, and that's how we are doing the sampling for that all across. And this is our side. If you cannot see it now because it's snow, it's just outside there. So the third lesson, that your productivity as a scientist, of course, increases with the networking move. And this notion has really driven me to different networks, at least three or two important networks, national networks. One is the ecological niche modeling, and the other one technological tools. There is an initiative, country-wide initiative of improving the conservation status of around 82 most threatened species. One of the lessons, last lesson that I would like to share with you is that in India, and especially in Kashmir also, as much as there is need of doing good science, there is equal need of, or probably more need of doing, science outreach. Because we have a trend, unfortunately, here. I don't know whether it's true for the rest of India also, but here I'm sure that most bright students at 11th and 12th standard level are going away from science. Probably they do not find much appeal in science, or we have not been able to communicate with them about the careers of science. So I am also quite interested in doing some outreach activities. I conducted an INSPIRE program in which Ron, unfortunately, is not here. He gave the inaugural talk, and if you see, you must enter the active demonstrating to the young students. They always love to listen to him, different things about the life science. Professor Hassan, these are the three guys who are our mentors here for this meeting as well. That's why I have put their photographs. And if you see Umar Shankar, he is back there, but hands up. This is not the Inspire. We also organized a workshop recently in which he is demonstrating how to buy prospect and what to buy prospect. So which is quite linked to the theme of the meeting. So the last slide, the take-home message for me is that as a young scientist, one has to have a courage to think outside the dominant paradigm. As Jitu rightly mentioned, we should create our own highways of doing science. And by doing a lot of stuff with the invasive species, me and Umashankar still are thinking what really these invasive species are. And we recently questioned, whether this invasive species is a reality or a myth, and we are arguing that we can define probably them on altogether different perspective in a niche-based paradigm. So the other take-home message that comes from my small discussion is that if we forge good collaborations and build our networks, we progress better. And for that we need to envision our targets well and keeping an eye on our weaknesses and strengths. And the only important thing that I believe is you only can prosper and be a great person in your own field so long you enjoy your own work. Especially so long you enjoy your teamwork. And I'm sure that this meeting will help in the networking and building the teams and for future doing some good biology stuff. I thank all these collaborators and the funding agencies. And while doing this, I have a lot of, these are three my kids, two sons and this daughter, with whom I have a lot of fun all the way after going back home in the evening. Sometimes they make me feel easy. You feel relaxed after the hectic day, but sometimes it's hard to handle them. So, thank you very much.